As Amanda mentioned, we will be sending the recording, the slides, and some other resources to you. So definitely take some notes, ask questions in the chat as we go. I try to answer questions kind of as we're chatting about things, but I also have some time hopefully at the end to do some Q&As as well. And without further ado, I will share my screen. And so for those who are just joining in now, feel free to pop in the chat, say hi, introduce your business, and meet all the other lovely entrepreneurs and business people in the chat. We can see my screen. Can I get a thumbs up? Everyone always want to make sure. Perfect. Okay. So I'm Kat. I'm the owner of Social Cat Media, which is a social media agency based in Peterborough, Ontario. And our big mission is not just making social media tolerable, but making it fun and effective, because it is something that is very a big opportunity for business, but I know it can be not our favorite thing necessarily to do in our business. So that's where we come in to make it less of a drag every day. A little about me, as I mentioned, social media strategist. I have 2 little kids. So I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. I'm a mental health advocate. I recently moved out into the country, so I'm new to rural living, which is also my disclaimer that at any point I freeze, or if something happens to my rural internet, I will pop back on within a minute. Sometimes it does get a little questionable out here, but hopefully we'll be good for today's session. I'm very passionate about community building, and that's one of the great things we can do with social media. We can build communities, we can get to have these like real relationship with people. And I'm a lover of the simple things in life, hence my move to the country. And I actually am very grateful to live on the land that surrounds Curve Lake First Nations, which is just north of Peterborough, Ontario. So the land that I'm presenting on is the traditional territory of the Mississauga Anishinaabe people, and I want to offer my gratitude and thanks for their teachings and relations with our land. So today, my goal is, whether you are just dipping your toes into social media or you're already established on social media, you're going to get some really great takeaways, both some high-level strategy. I think someone is saying difficulty hearing me. Is that overall a problem, or we're good? Overall good? Awesome. Okay. So whether you're just getting started or you're more established, we're going to chat some high-level strategy things, but also specific tactics. So that's going to be really great for you to take away and implement today, tomorrow, whenever you're next on social media. And we're going to start by talking about our content strategy. So this is what we're posting, and very importantly, why we're posting it. When it comes to social media, I think there is a lot of pressure that we need to be posting more, we need to be doing more. But what really is important is the why. So what is the business reason that we are on social media? So we're going to chat about how we determine that, and then how we create content for our audience. So the question that I'll kind of pose, the hypothetical question, or no real answer question, is like, why is your business on social media, or why are you thinking about social media for your business? And obviously, we want to be marketing. We're using this tool to reach our audience, to promote our services or products. So that is, of course, an important part of why your business is on social media. But we also need to kind of go further than that, because not every post is going to lead to a sale. And with marketing just in general, it's important to know that things take time. And the rule of 7 is an often kind of talked about thing in marketing, that it takes someone 7 times to hear about your product or to hear about your service before they're ready to buy or to work with you. So when we're thinking about social media, we also need to go push beyond the, oh, I want to grow my business kind of mindset, because then it can get really frustrating if we create an account, we're making posts, and then we're not seeing that, let's say, sales right away. We also want to get into like the specific outcomes that we want from social media. So those are our KPIs, or our key performance indicators. And that can help us determine, are we on the right track? Are we getting to where we want to go? When it comes to KPIs, so these analytics that we're going to look at, the three main kind of categories of them that we'll chat about are brand awareness. So if you're creating a social media presence for your business because you want your business name or your kind of you to get out into the community more and people to understand your business and to know who you are, brand awareness might be your kind of key goal on social media. And if that's the case, then we're going to be looking at things like reach. So how many people are seeing our posts? How is our follower growth going? And what is the engagement like on our posts? If our goal is community, so really building a stronger connection or relationship with people, whether they're in your local community or abroad, things that we're going to be looking for are comments and messages. So things that show that people are actively engaging with us and we're creating those connections with people. And why this is really important to highlight is when we think about social media, I think often we look at the followers as a signal of success, that we need to be getting more followers in order to sell or to do things on social, but that's not necessarily the case. It's way more impactful and effective if we had 100 followers and 50 of them are engaged and commenting, and they see your posts and they're connecting with you, versus if we had 1,000 followers but only a few of them are seeing our content. So much of social media is about building these connections with people so that they feel like they know your business, that they like and they trust your business. So it goes beyond brand awareness. Brand awareness is obviously a great kind of like first starting point, or depending on where your business is, but it's not the be all and end all of social media. The next thing, the other type of analytic or KPI to think about is conversions. And this is where we get into that more like hard selling aspect. So things like people clicking the link to purchase, or clicking a product tag on social media, if they're messaging you about a service or a product. The only downside about selling on social media is this is harder to track. So there's no really straightforward way where, let's say we make a post and about our pottery for sale. Really hard for us to track, did someone purchase this product based on our social media post? So that's where we need to be a little bit, kind of like zoom out a little bit and look, okay, are people, once they see a post, clicking the link to check out on the website? Are people sending a message? So we can make some overall assumptions and hypothesize based on what we're seeing in the analytics, and then determine, okay, like when I post about things sell. So we have to be a bit more creative with how we track that. So once we've kind of figured out, okay, why are we on social media? Yes, to market our businesses, but we also want to think about why our customers are on social media. And this is going to be a comparison that I chat a lot about today, that we have to consider our business, but we also need to consider our customer, because social media is a two-way relationship. And that's something I think is often missed on social media as businesses. We sometimes treat it as a one-way form of communication, like a billboard. Like if we're putting up a billboard, we put it up there, people drive by. It's a very passive form of advertising. When it comes to social media, though, is we get this really great opportunity to have these conversations with people and build connection with people. I think all as humans on social media, we can appreciate that if a brand or a business is constantly selling at us and not adding anything to our day, adding anything to our life, we're going to be less likely to follow along. So that's something to consider is what does our audience get out of following us on social media? And we want to make sure that we're providing them with value. The 4 main types of value that we'll talk through in more detail are education, inspiration, connection, and entertainment. So we'll walk through what that looks like in actual practice and some examples of how it could work for your business. But the idea is that when we're posting on social media, it's not always necessarily just about us. We want to be framing things in the world of our customers and figuring out how can we connect with them, how can we provide value to them in their lives. So a really good exercise, if you haven't done it before, is to sit down and write out your customer profile and try to get as specific as you can in terms of who your customer is and like what type of things they like and what does their life look like. So are they retired? Do they have small children at home? Just in those 2 kind of examples there, completely different ways that we're going to talk to these target markets. And even if maybe your product is for both people, thinking about, okay, who am I reaching on social media and where do I want to focus on my messaging? Because that's going to impact what type of content we're creating on social media. In determining what type of content we're creating, important to note that you don't need to create everything. And that's also kind of a main message of when I speak is we don't need to do everything. We don't need to be on every platform. It's really about highlighting which ones feel good for you. So what fits your brand, what fits your business, what fits you as the creator, and what type of content you could see yourself creating. So if I'm a lawyer, maybe like the entertainment is not a thing that fits in my brand. Like I'm not going to do memes or like joke posts or maybe make like a fun reel or TikTok video, but I could definitely provide some education to my audience about things to know when writing your will or buying a house, like the steps you need to take in terms of law stuff. So it's important to think about yourself, but then also what you think would be relevant to your audience. And that's where we really get that sweet spot of content where that overlap is between what we want to talk about as a business and what our audience cares about. So anytime we can overlap that, that's where we're going to get the most out of our content. So we're going to walk through those 4 forms of value, show some examples, talk about them. Any questions, as I mentioned, drop them in the chat. This would be great too if you want to throw in some like industries or your business in the chat, and then I can use some examples for specific businesses or industries as well. So when it comes to education, this is our opportunity to showcase that we are an expert, that the audience should trust you. So this is very relevant for service providers. And it can be for product businesses as well. If there is a specialization with your product or something that you can speak uniquely on about your product. But really, when we think about education, it is pretty straightforward in terms of educating our audience on a topic, something that they can learn about from your content, something really bite-sized. So we're not going to try to explain, maybe like I'll use that lawyer example just because in my head, like if I'm a lawyer, I'm not going to explain the whole process of buying a house and like all the different things, because that's like too much content if I'm thinking about someone scrolling through their phone. that's an overwhelming amount of content. But maybe I'm gonna do a post about like 3 things you need to know before you buy your first house. Do 3 little like point form notes, and then that's my content. So we want to make it bite-size information. We're thinking about tips, industry updates. So any things going on in your industry that you are an expert on that you can speak about. It can look like recipes or how-to guides, 3 ways to. Another great way to think about it and to brainstorm ideas can be thinking about magazines. If we think about like the titles and the headlines we see on the front of a magazine, often they have those, they call it listicles, like an article that's a list. So like 5 things you don't know about bananas. If I'm a nutritionist, maybe I'm going to educate about bananas. I don't know. Or 3 ways to make a healthy morning smoothie. So anything that you have expertise on that you can speak about, that is how education can come into play. So an example from my own business, I do a lot of education on social media about social media. So this was a post about 4 ways. So again, I'm using that headline example, 4 ways to share blog posts on Instagram. I've shared 4 examples. I'm not going into any kind of like super in-depth content, but I'm giving value. And the thing I like to say there is like, we're not selling the farm. We're not giving away the farm. We want to give those little bite-sized pieces of information that like get people intrigued. They see your expertise and then they're like, okay, actually I need to work with you because I can't make my meal plan for the week. I tried, I made your 3 healthy morning smoothies, but now I need an expert to come in. So this is how we can build that relationship and that expertise with our audience. There's also a term, an idea on social media called the like, know, trust factor. And what that means is that social media gives us the opportunity for people to first, know, like, trust, first know us. So that's that brand awareness piece. They know they've heard of your business before because maybe they saw your post on social or someone shared a post into their stories. The like factor is you're posting relevant content to them that they like you as a business. They see your content, they see you supporting your community or doing these great things. And then the trust factor is when we can like prove what we do. So if we're a service-based business, probably going to be some like education pieces. If we're a product-based business, that's going to like showcase what we do and how it benefits their life. Because even if, for example, there was a maker's market in Peterborough this weekend, and I bought sun hats for my kids. That has value to my life, even though it's not educating me necessarily, but I'm like the way Jen, the owner of the business, markets it. She talks about, the wider brim than the average sun hat you can buy, and that they're easier to clean, things like that. So she's still providing value that I trust her business. I'm like, oh yeah, that's going to make my life easier as a mom in the summer if I have sun hats that actually cover my kids' ears and prevent sunburns. So thinking about those benefits of your product and how that benefits the life of your customer. If anyone wants any examples specific for your business, feel free to drop your business in the chat as well. The next term of value is inspiration. And I'll use a magazine example again. And this time, not necessarily about those specific, like a listicle or an article, but more so about those like beautiful spreads that we see in a magazine, like the things that we fold down the corner of, so we go back and it's like that beautiful picture of the kitchen or the garden that's all set up for summer. So inspiration is really like the aspirational content that our customer wants to achieve, like the end goal, and then we can show them how we can help them get there. So anything that helps your customer feel like they can achieve their end goal. So that can be beautiful photos, and we'll chat a lot about photos later on, but there is a lot of value even in sharing high quality, good photos. It shows like, oh, and I'll always use the example for me as like when I was having my first kids, I would see these beautiful like nursery photos of like these perfectly curated nurseries. And it gives you the feeling like, if I buy this print for the wall, I'm going to have like this great postpartum experience. Like it's like a psychological thing that when we see these nice photos, so investing in whether working with a photographer or taking some photos on your own does have a lot of value on social media. This can look like for your business, like showing your product in use, showing your clients end goal. So if I'm a house cleaner, I'm going to showcase beautiful like before and after photos that show that end goal of like the perfectly clean fridge. If I'm an organizer, I'm going to show like the before and after of a primary bedroom closet transformation. And then that after is that inspiration that people are like, I need that. It can also look like thought leadership. So if you're an expert in the industry talking about trends, things you're seeing. I think when we think about inspiration, often we go to the quotes. We think about like, oh, I'm going to post a quote from Oprah or Steve Jobs, but it can be that, but it can also be whatever works for your business and your audience. So I have a few examples, and it's a great comment from Vicky in the chat. What comes to mind is helping a customer solve a problem. So and these are like sometimes like very minuscule problems, but your product does solve a problem, even if it's like the problem is boring mugs and you make beautiful handmade mugs. That's a problem that you solve, and you want to showcase that end experience that your customer gets. So I see a couple businesses in the chat. So Miller's Family Camp on Miller Lake on the Bruce Peninsula. Hi, Lindsay. So inspiration for this could look like, we're thinking about, okay, what is the end goal of my audience? If I'm a parent, like a busy parent, you know, life is hectic, I want to come to this camp and have like these beautiful family moments. So I want you to showcase not necessarily the specifics of like, here's the cottage you can rent or the campground, but like highlight let's say it's a photo of a campfire and maybe it's like some marshmallow, and this could be a stock photo too that you get online, or it'd be best if it was like one that you've taken. But then, so instead of talking about just like, oh, come to the camp for the week and have family memories, we could like hone in on that specific scenario. Like imagine like escaping to the Bruce Peninsula, sitting with your friends or with your kids around the fire and looking up at the stars at night, and like go tell a little bit about the story of the experience, because that's what's going to sell the person. It's like that emotional connection. The logistical part that comes into their decision making, but our emotional drivers as customers and consumers is so powerful that this is where we can really lean on that as well, as like, okay, how can I lean into that? And so I mentioned like the quotes thing. So they can be like inspirational quotes, but it can also be something on the more fun end. It really depends on your brand voice and your customers. So for me, I lean more to like the silly side on social media. So my inspirational quote type content isn't necessarily going to be like, you are you, no one else could be you. Mine is more, you can't please everyone, you're not pizza. So this is an example of how you can make it work for your business, regardless of your brand voice. It doesn't necessarily need to be quote unquote cheesy if that's not your brand. Let's do another example here. How to create, so Joan's Stamp and Beach Club teaches people how to create their own handmade cards. Love that, Joan. So let's say we're doing, we're thinking about a workshop that we're offering or something like that. Again, we want to talk about the experience. So not just the product or what they're going to walk away, but the end goal. So maybe you're going to this workshop with your girlfriend, and you could do inspiration about like who to send a card to. Like, when was the last time you sent a card to Aunt Mary who lives on PEI? So like telling these stories that will relate to your audience, that like, oh yeah, I haven't sent a card to, you know, my cousin in a while. So those are like, that's inspiration that really like pulls on that emotional driver that we have as consumers. Another form of value we can give on social media is connection. And this is overlooked often as businesses because we have obviously the goal of marketing and of selling, but we can't forget that humans are on social media to connect with humans. That's why social media was created in the first place. And that's where that two-way street comes in, that we want our customers to be engaging with us, but we also need to be engaging with them as well. And this is going to look different, like vastly different depending on the business. If you're a solo entrepreneur or a small business, like a very small business, you can really lean into telling your story. But even if you are a larger organization, there's still lots of opportunities to connect with your audience about telling those stories of the real people who interact with your business, who make up your business. This can look like behind the scenes. So even if it's an employee, let's say what we do, it's March right now. Maybe one of your employees is a really big basketball fan and is, you know, made their March Madness brackets. Like, you could make a post that is showing these two staff members with their March Madness brackets. And you might say, like, what does that have to do with my business? But this is where we build that trust with people and that understanding who we are, because when a person on social media, a potential customer, sees these little snippets of your life, your businesses kind of behind the scenes, that can be what makes them decide to work with you over a competitor. So for the most part, we all probably do something that someone else offers or does in a slightly different way. But what really makes a difference, and what social media gives us the opportunity to showcase, is what makes us us. And that is a huge part of why people choose to purchase from people, when we have that emotional connection, as I mentioned. So if you're a solopreneur or a small business, you might be sharing life as a small business owner. So some of the behind the scenes of what it looks like running the business, or like your hobbies outside of business. Like, maybe you are an avid gardener, so you talk about prepping your gardens for spring. And this would work for a lot of different, like if we go back to that lawyer example, even if I'm a lawyer, I could share, right, a photo of my garden from last summer and talk about that. And it's going to make someone who relates to that and kind of feels compelled to that to want to work with me versus another lawyer in my community. And I don't know why I use the lawyer example, because I'm very much not a lawyer, but let's look here in the chat. So Janet is from Midwestern Communications. We sell and service business photocopiers. So here, where we're going to have, maybe, I'm not sure if it's like a family business, but let's say it's a larger organization. That's where we can highlight employees and like things you might not know about an employee, that maybe the person that answers the phone every time you call. You can tell them a little bit about, you know, what they're doing in the spring. Are they sharing their favorite hiking spots to get out in Bruce County? So thinking about what little snippets of your life, your audience's life, your employees' lives can you showcase on social media? Another great way to build connection is thinking about like conversational content. So anytime you can ask your audience questions and get their opinion, it's also like valuable to you as a business owner. Like if you're asking, maybe it's 2 different prints or 2 different styles of a product, like which one do they like more? You're getting their opinion, you're getting them to engage with you, and it's also some really good market research for you. Co-chair of Cargill's Pickin' by the Pond Country Music Festival. Amazing. So Cindy, this would be connection, could be telling the story of some of the people who come to the country music festival. So if there's any good stories about, let's say, a couple that's been going for X number of years and they you know, it's on their calendar every year. You could highlight the people of the board or the people that are organizing the festival and share who are their favorite country music artists are, and like, or who they're most excited to see this summer. So telling the stories of the organization and the people who come to it. The other thing I want to say here too is that often I think when people think about connection on social media, our brain goes to like the influencer world where people are sharing like every single aspect of their business and their life on social media. And while that does build connection, it's not what we need to do. We don't need to share every piece of our life on social media. If you want to, that's awesome. But it's not for most people. Like most people aren't interested into that. Want to think about what feels good to you and what makes sense to your audience. So for myself, I talk a lot about being a mom and a business owner. It's relevant to a lot of my audience. It's very important to me. So if we think about that Venn diagram, it's very important to me. Just the struggles of it, the awesomeness of it, all those things. And it's also relevant to my audience. So I have that really good like overlap there in the middle. But for me, I also have a lot of boundaries around that. So I don't share my kids' names on social media. I don't share their photos on social media, but I'm still able to have these really strong conversations and connections with people about it without sharing those details. So you get to decide, you don't need to share everything about your life, but maybe it is a hobby like gardening, or you really like baking. And those are the things you're going to highlight versus sharing every single piece about your life. So here's an example about that part of my connection piece on social media, talking about parenting and business ownership. And this was a kind of spur of the moment post that it was November. Yeah, November. I don't know if any of people listening have small children, but from September to December with my kids in school and daycare, we didn't have one full week where they were both in school or in daycare the whole week. Constant sickness and just like very overwhelming. And I'm like, why is no one talking about this? Like there's what is going on? So I made this post and it's like one of my top performing posts ever. And because it really resonated with my audience, and it's not, wildly personal in terms of sharing personal details, but it is something that my audience can relate to. Here, I'm going to go through the chat because I see there's some good questions. What would work for non-alcoholic beverages? Recipes, brand events, infographics on ingredients, recipes, great way. So like that's kind of fits into that education piece of like a mocktail recipe or pairings like this, like just like alcohol brand would, like this beer pairs well with XYZ. Doing some pairings for your beverages. I also think in terms of, not sure if this would fit into like inspiration, education, that industry education or industry like expertise. I don't drink alcohol. And I've heard the term lately of sober curious. So a lot of people who are it sounds like experimenting with non-alcoholic beverages. So it'd be interesting to do some like information about the industry as a whole and like cultural shifts. So like my husband is a big fan of craft beer. And lately we've been ordering from a bunch of websites that are strictly like non-alcoholic, and he's been trying a whole variety of non-alcoholic craft beers. So it could almost also could be like swaps to make, like if you like this, try this, and thinking about your audience and the reason why they're shopping from you. So some of them maybe like a medical reason, you know, don't drink alcohol. Some it's a lifestyle choice, and some it's just like, I mean, like like there's a lot of research coming out about the health impacts, things like that. But thinking about, okay, why does my customer pick me? Like, why are they shopping for me instead of the LCBO? And then pulling on some like education about that. I think that would be really good. And then depending on your comfort level, there could be opportunities to talk about your experience as the business owner, maybe some of your favorite drinks, or staff picks. Could do some taste kind of like, I will end it here because I could talk for a long time about this, but taste testing. So like whether it's you, Shirley, or other staff members or community members doing some like taste tests, where like a blind taste test where you give them a non-alcoholic wine or a non-alcoholic beer, and you have someone explain the flavors and explain it. And so that I think a lot of people who think about, let's say if they are a beer drinker and are going to then switch, there's a lot of worry about the quality or the taste being a lot different. So filming some taste sessions would be really good. The last piece of value, we think about social media, you're welcome, is entertainment. And just like all of these, there's going to be some that work for your business and there's going to be some that don't. Entertainment really came into power when the introduction of like reels on social media, on Instagram, I should say, when TikTok really came into the world. So entertainment does often fall into some of those short form video content, but it can also look like memes or like joke content. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go create a TikTok account or things like that. But there definitely is value when we entertain our audience. Big opportunity to like pull on pop culture as well. This is from like the Super Bowl when Rihanna did her like super awesome performance. Again, relevant to my audience because I know a lot of them are watching. So I made a meme, which is taking like a pop culture image and then adding something that's relevant to your business or to your audience. So for me, it was, again, playing on that like key messaging in my business about parenthood and business ownership, when they say you can't build a successful business while raising babies. And it's like this like very determined, like powerful look from Rihanna. And again, this actually was like a put together quickly post as I was watching the Super Bowl. But this can look different, like vastly different depending on your business. I was working with a sewing store, working on their strategy, and we talked about entertainment. And so for them, in terms of their audience, this Rihanna meme is probably not going to be as relevant. But we did some Googling. So even like Google can be a really great place to get inspired and look for ideas. And we just Googled sewing memes. And there were some really, really funny ones that are less, you know, specific pop culture based, but just some general ideas. So there was one, it's like an older couple sitting down, and it looked like there was like a lawyer, like a person in like a suit, and the person in the suit is saying to the man, "Sorry, Bob, using the fabric scissors for paper is grounds for divorce." So it's much more in that like comic form, but there's opportunities to like engage your audience, make them laugh, make them see themselves in that content. So if you're wondering like, hey, what works for my business, it's really good. Like Google is a great place to start. So if I looked up camping memes or camping jokes, there's an opportunity to look for ideas. Or yeah, the camping one, there's probably a ton of really good jokes or content we could do in the entertainment zone. So a question from D in the chat: what if you don't have a website, only a Facebook business site? That's okay. There's definitely benefits of having a website in terms of like search engine optimization and things like that. But social media can be an okay is a good place to for sure get started, to share your products, your services, and get people intrigued. And then maybe it's something that you look at expanding into going forward. So when we think about those four, I'm back. I jinxed it because it never had happened before, but it happened, but I'm back. Thankfully, it's just quick. For a second, I'm like, wait, what just happened? Where did everyone go? Okay, we're gonna go back to sharing my screen. All good. And I'm gonna present. Okay, let me just get the chat back up. Welcome back, thank you. So when we think about those four ways that we can provide value on social media, we want to lead with those on social media. So as I mentioned, it's not just about selling our products, selling our services, but we want to be connecting with our audience, having them get to know us, trust us. So we want to lead with value. And this is a very like general ratio, by no means like scientific or specific, but the general idea is leading with values, like the majority of the time providing value to our audience, and then selling 20% of the time. The other thing to consider and to keep in mind is even when we're providing value, like we still are selling our product. So it's this marketing piece really comes into that like hard selling when we're maybe like promoting a sale or promoting a launch of a new product, or like doing a campaign about a specific service or product we offer. These ways that we're providing value are also selling our products, just not as in a like direct form. So when I'm educating my audience about social media, I'm selling my services because I'm showing that I'm an expert. When I am maybe doing some like inspiration content, I'm selling my services because I'm showcasing who I am as a person and what it's like to work with me. When I'm connecting, the same thing, I'm like getting people to know like, okay, that's the person I want to work with because she gets me. And when I'm entertaining, similar thing. It's like entertainment is almost a form of connection. And Vicky has a really good point in the chat as well about marketing. When we're doing that direct selling, that's when we're going to use a strong call to action for the end goal we want to see. So like call us for more information, click the link to check out. Yeah, shop online here. So that's when we're going to see those like direct call to actions. We still want to use call to actions with our value posts, but in this case, we're going to be using a call to action about engagement usually. So maybe in the education post, I'm going to ask like, what questions do you have about picking the best meat for a barbecue? I know there's someone who does pasture raised organic meat. So like, yeah, if I'm doing a post about like the right temperature to grill chicken at, I can have a call to action, but that action that I want the person to take is answering, like responding in the comments or engaging with the content. So when we take those four forms of value, and now we're gonna start thinking about, okay, like how do I actually create posts from that, Kat? I'm gonna walk you through 3 different ways to develop post ideas. And all 3 of them work for any business. Some of them, the analytics piece, if you're just getting started, this won't be as relevant to you yet, but it is a really powerful way. So we'll start with brainstorming. So brainstorming comes in two different facets. One is going to be the everyday brainstorming. And this just is part of the fact that we'll probably think of our best ideas when we're not actually thinking of content ideas. Like when we're actually sitting down to create content, we're probably sometimes overthinking it. So I definitely recommend you either have a note on your phone or a notepad somewhere easily accessible where you can put ideas in as they come to you. They'll be like when you're doing the dishes or you're walking the dog. For me, now that I live out in the country, I spend a lot of time in the car. And often that's when I get really good ideas for my business. So then I just do like, hey Siri. Oh, I don't want to start everyone's Siri going, but I'll say, hey, please make a note. And then I'll just like talk out my ideas for social. And then I just go through my notes and then add it to my planning process. So there's that piece of brainstorming. And then there's also active brainstorming. So this is when we sit down and we ask ourselves some questions. And this can help us pull out post ideas based on those 4 categories. So thinking about FAQs, like, okay, what have my customers been asking me a lot lately? And so maybe that's going to lead to some really good education-based posts. Thinking about like our customers' lives. Okay, like my life right now is like the mud season of Canada. So maybe if I'm like a dog walker, like I'm thinking about, okay, my customers are taking their animals for a walk and like there's mud everywhere. So maybe it's about like, how often should I be bathing my dog when he's covered in mud all the time? Or how do I prevent my dog from tracking mud into my house every day? Thinking about other industries, what has resonated with you? If you've seen posts and it's like, okay, how can I make that work for my business? Looking at testimonials and reviews. This is really great too, because then you can see the wonderful things people are saying about you and highlight that in content. So if people are saying like, oh, the customer service is really great, or she listened and made a really personalized card for me based on my needs, that's content you want to incorporate in your posts. I'm also going to show you a really great website. Let me just pull it up, called Answer the Public. And it lets you type in any like keywords and it tells you what people are Googling about that topic. So I'm just going to think about, I'm going to type in camping. I'm going to share my screen now that I'm logging in. It's called answerthepublic.com. I was going to see if it was going to make me sign in. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen to that now. So basically what it does, so answerthepublic.com, it's free to use, I think, for a certain number of searches. So you type in like your industry or like something about your product, and it looks at what people are searching. So the who, the what, the why, and the how. And this gives you a really good sense of like what questions people are asking about your industry. So why camping is good for you. So maybe I'm going to do a post that's like 5 ways camping helps your mental health or your physical health. When camping, where do you poop? Okay, that's a maybe not a social media post. So I'm just looking here. Oh, like camping near me. So you're talking about like what areas you serve. Yeah, can camping help anxiety? Like, so these are questions that people are asking on Google. So you're getting like the questions that they really are asking. And then you can see, okay, how can I create content that speaks to that? There's a lot of questions about camping being good for you and reducing stress and things like that. So for the family campground tuning in, that's going to be a really great opportunity to share content about that. What camping gear is essential? Like these are, you know, your 4 must-haves. And this is also going to be where it's really important to consider your audience. Is your audience people where they're, you know, they're not avid campers, they're coming, maybe they go camping once a year. And so they need that education. If they're avid campers and you know, like they have all the tools. This might not be the content for them, but if you're definitely trying to reach, new people, this would be a great, what camping gear do I need? That kind of stuff. If I type in Instagram, actually, let's do, I lost the chat from the call cutting out. I'm just trying to think. I'll do Instagram just as an example, as like a service. See, now it wants me to, I don't know if I have an account. Okay, well, see, it wants me to log in now, but it is still free to use. But that camping one is a really good example. You get 3 free searches a day, which is, I don't think any of us are going to be using more than that, but Answer the Public is a really great brainstorming tool. Google is also good. So if you type in your industry, like questions about XYZ, and you can see what people are searching at, what questions people are asking. So that brainstorming can be something you do like on a monthly basis, sitting down and just like asking yourself these questions, looking at something like an Answer the Public or doing those Google searches and seeing what questions people are asking about your industry. Other thing you can do, if you already have an established social media presence, is look at your past posts and your analytics. And this is really important because when it comes to social media, not everyone is seeing every piece of content that we post. So it is important that we replicate or repurpose content going forward to save ourselves the time and to make the most use of our content. So we'll use that camping example again. If I've made that post that's like 5 essential gear for your camping trip, if I posted that in summer 2022, or let's say spring 2022, getting ready for the camping season, I should post it again in spring 2023. I don't need to then, post it and then forget about it and never use it again. That's a big piece of content that I can reuse, and no one's going to know that if they saw it spring 2023, that it was first posted in spring 2022. Maybe you change the type of content, like maybe it was a single image last time, and maybe now you're going to do a video. There's ways to upgrade it or update it, but I encourage you to go through your social media feeds after this and see like what photos that are really good. Like if you have some professional photos of your product or you in the past, like, okay, which ones can I repost? If they're over 2 or 3 months old, you can 100% repost them and no one's going to know. So look at any old photos you can use that are like high quality photos, and any like topics. So this is really helpful too when we're thinking of post ideas, to go back to last year. So right now, if we're thinking about, okay, what am I going to post in April? Go back to April 2022 and see what you were posting about. Like, what kind of content did you do? Anything around Easter? Did you do anything for Earth Day? Can I reuse that graphic I created or use a similar caption? We want to make sure that like we're saving time and energy when we're doing social media. So that's a really great place to look. The other place to look is in your analytics. Now I'll actually just share my phone to my screen to my phone and just giving you an example of what that looks like on Instagram. So when you're on I'm going to use Instagram as the example, but every social media platform does have analytics and insights. And this lets you get a sense of what content is performing well. So it helps us see, okay, what can I do more of? And we can also look at, okay, how can I improve my content going forward? So if I go into my, as I mentioned, I'm going to use Instagram as an example. I'm going to go into my settings, and I'm going to go to my insights. This gives me general information about lots of things, including who my audience is, how many accounts I'm reaching. But in this example, I want to know about the content I've shared. So I'm going to go to content I shared. And this is going to curate and sort my content based on metrics that I define. I'm going to use posts as the example. So no videos, no reels. And I'm going to do the last year. So this is looking at all my posts from the last year, and it first is it's sorting them by default by reach. So I can see, okay, if my goal is brand awareness and I want to reach more people, I want to replicate these type of posts. So have a lot of like big, bold, kind of simple graphics with like one or two, like one sentence on it. I have a meme I can see coming up. So it was like, if that's my goal right now, I'm going to focus on more. So maybe I'm going to incorporate some more memes. I'm going to do some more like motivation, inspiration for my audience about like, it's time to raise your prices, things like that. Another meme here. So you can see some general things like trends coming up. And I also have some connection posts like that feature photos of me. So then I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to do more of these. So that's based on reach. So that was my goal. If my goal is conversions, where I'm really like in a selling focused time, I can also see what posts have led to the most website tabs. So for people clicking to my website after seeing a post. And I was hiring, so that one got a lot of clicks, but I see a lot of workshop posts. So like this was about workshops, this Instagram bootcamp was a workshop, this Reels one is a workshop. So I can see, okay, what calls to actions am I using that are encouraging people to shop, things like that, and learn, okay, what is working for me to convert people to my website. Also interesting to me that a meme that has no call to action about working with me or something like that did convert well. Like it's one of my top converting posts of people going to my website, although I'm not selling. So that just shows that it's very relevant to my audience and that it really spoke to them and they wanted to go check out who I am. So that's handy. And then the other piece I might look at is maybe if I'm really want to like grow my engagement, grow that community, I'm going to look at comments. So like what post led to the most comments? And it's a lot of those connection posts. So you can see a lot of photos of me showing up. Connection is that parents are not okay post, really resonating with people. So people were commenting, some about me ones. So it's really helpful to see those trends and then also see, okay, what can I do from here? What's working? And if I scroll down, I can see, okay, what posts got no comments? So what could I do to upgrade these posts and make them more like these posts? So those are some of the learnings you can do from your analytics. And as I mentioned, these are available on every platform, which is great. So you can see, okay, how your content is performing. I just need to, my presentation went to a different screen on my computer. So let's just open it up again. Stop share. So I got a question in the chat. Am I going to show you how to create cool posts? So the key thing with social media is that strategy. So a lot of like the bells and whistles won't be effective if we don't have a strategy behind it and like know why we're posting and what the value is to our audience. So that's always going to be my place where we start. We're going to go in next to the platforms and like what we're going to be posting, what that looks like. We won't be going into like specifics in terms of like going to Canva or like creating graphics. But I'm going to show you a few things, but the focus and that like creating a good post really comes down to these things that we've been talking about, and how we can create content that's going to grow our business at the end of the day. And so that's really what we're thinking about here is like, okay, what is growing our business, what's adding value to our audience, and the power behind that content. Okay, I got my presentation back up. Another question I just got in the chat about following versus followers. So in the specific, whether Instagram or Facebook, there's going to be accounts that you are following. So if I bring up, actually what we'll do is I'll show you on Instagram itself. Once it loads, so following is how many accounts that you are following, like your account. So Social Cat Media, the account is following 1,300 people. So those are all people that I have said following to. I see their content in my feed and I'm like connected to them. Followers is how many people are following your account. So how many people have subscribed to your account. The other thing I'll mention here too, as Amanda mentioned at the beginning of the workshop, that there is opportunities to work with me one-on-one in complimentary power hours from Bruce County. So when we think about like those specific tactics or things for your business, those are always things that we could work on. Like if you're wondering like, how do I create a reel or how do I use Canva to create a graphic? Those are things that we can kind of dive into one-on-one in the future as well. So you will get information about booking that along with the recording and all the resources from today. So the other thing about developing post ideas is looking at themes and dates coming up. So thinking about the world outside of our business and the world that surrounds our business. So upcoming themes, if we think about right now, like we have spring cleaning, like getting outdoors. So we talked about earlier, like, oh, my favorite hike spots in Bruce County. Like that's a way I could have connection with my audience and share a little bit about me. Easter. So if I make cards, I'm going to talk about Easter cards, or if my audience is parents, I'm going to maybe share some, or if I'm not parents, like if I'm an interior designer, I'm going to share decorating tips for Easter, things like that. Thinking about what's going on in the world and what's relevant to your audience. And nationaltoday.com is also a good resource. It shows you all the like random holidays that that you probably don't know about. So a lot of these might not be relevant. They're not relevant to every business, but there are some good ones. And it also does have like the important dates too. So if we go to April, there's April Fool's Day, like Edible Book Day. Don't ask me about that one. With these, it's important to think about, okay, like what is really relevant to my business, to my audience. So for me, like if you're a fun business or like it's relevant, go for it. But don't feel like your business needs to talk about April Fools if it's not relevant. Major League Baseball opening day, if you somehow work in the sports industry or your fans are sporting fan, if your customers are sporting fans, maybe you're going to do something about the MLB opening day. See if there's any other good ones that we could talk about. If I'm a bakery, heck yeah, I'm gonna be posting about National Sourdough Bread Day. Or maybe if I'm not a bakery, but I like started making sourdough bread in 2020, I'm going to share a little bit about my experience, and that would be a good connection post. Side note, I did try making sourdough bread and I failed a lot. So it never happened. But yeah, this is a really great website to see some of those. Some of them are very important dates, and then some of them are more on the fun side and thinking about, okay, what's relevant to my audience, what's relevant to my business. Dog Appreciation Month. There's as you can see, a ton of different things. Stress awareness. So Stress Awareness Month, maybe this is a really good time to make that post about like the mental health benefits of camping, and that example we talked about earlier. So that is a a great resource as well for developing content ideas. So we talked about what type of content and like how we develop content ideas. And now we're going to talk about where we can post them and how we'll post them, like the specific types of content that each platform enjoys or is designed for. The one thing I want to say here too, important to remember, is that we don't need to be everywhere on social media. Just because one business has success on Instagram or on TikTok doesn't mean that we need to be on those platforms if they don't feel good to us, or our audience isn't there. So I'm going to chat a little bit about the demographics of each platform and what type of content goes on each platform. And then you can make a decision about, okay, what should I try a new one? Where is going to be the right place for me? The 4 main ones I'll talk about today, briefly: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. So we'll start with Facebook, which was like the OG, like the original social media platform. It definitely we have seen a decline in terms of engagement and reach on social media on Facebook, but it still is a very popular platform, still is well used. So by no means is it, gone from the social landscape for business. It's most popular. It is the most popular network for women and men aged 35 to 44. So if your demographic, your target falls within that demographic, then that's a place that you definitely want to be. And people are still using it often. So 70% of Facebook users visit the site daily, and 50% saying they check the platform several times a day. So it's not like it's completely gone from the world of social media. Some other things to consider with Facebook: it does help with SEO, so search engine optimization. Having a Facebook page can help you show up in Google because Facebook has so much weight. Like, Google trusts Facebook, whether it should, that's another question, but Google knows like Facebook is a real website. It's going to help it show up in search results. So that's something to consider. I always recommend, even if it's not going to be your platform of choice or where you're the most active, creating a Facebook page just for this reason alone, that it can help with search results. And as I mentioned, like, we don't necessarily need to be creating content specifically for each platform. So let's say you already have an Instagram account, you haven't really used Facebook yet. Create a Facebook page, link it to your Instagram account, and have that content go in both places. So you're keeping your Facebook page active. You're getting some of the benefits of having a Facebook account without doing a lot of extra work. The other big thing to consider with Facebook is paid advertising. So in order to advertise on Facebook and Instagram, you need to have a business Facebook account. And there are big opportunities with the paid advertising, like especially if you're targeting a local demographic, like if you're looking at just reaching people in Bruce County, you can do that pretty effectively and at a fairly low cost compared to other advertising avenues. So it's just something to consider. If down the road you want to look at doing some paid ads, it's something to consider. I know there's like a lot of people have feelings about Facebook and like paying for it and things like that, but it is important to recognize that without social media, we wouldn't have these free advertising platforms. So it's important to consider, like, yes, Facebook and Instagram are free, and that's awesome for our businesses, but also, like, Facebook doesn't owe us anything necessarily, like, as a free platform. So we shouldn't necessarily fight back against paying for advertising. It is a big opportunity and something to look into for sure. And that's also something we could do one-on-one in the future too. When it comes to Facebook content, nice thing about Facebook is it's one of the, so if you think about like, compared to Instagram, we can't share links, where on Facebook we can. So if we have articles or news, things like that, it's nice that we can link directly to our website. It's good for shareable content. So we think about those memes and reels. So Facebook rolled out reels, which are those short form videos last year. And video is a big part of Facebook. So that could be a great opportunity to like play around with some video content if you've had a Facebook page and maybe you've seen it get a little stagnant in terms of engagement, is looking at creating some video content. It doesn't need to be highly produced or anything fancy. It can just be filmed on your phone and then seeing how that performs on Facebook. The other thing you can do on Facebook is create events, and that's also good in terms of like search results. So if you're hosting any kind of event or you're at a market, things like that, creating a Facebook event will be good for your reach and reaching new people. Overall, like my general like foundation amount of content across platforms is like 2 posts per week to be showing up, being active. There are benefits to posting more, but none of those benefits outweigh like your capacity, your mental health, things like that. So it's something to keep in mind. We want to keep our platforms active and consistent. We don't want to like post once, not post for 3 months, post a couple times, and then not post for a couple weeks. We want to build that consistency on our social media so that people can kind of find out what to expect from us, and it gives us opportunity to show up in our audience's feeds. When it comes to Instagram, so also owned by Facebook, I have like the full demographic breakdown here. So it definitely skews 18 to 34 in terms of demographics, so on that younger end. But the older side of the demographics is also growing. So like in 2021, the number of 55 to 64-year-olds on Instagram grew by 63%. So it is a place where you can reach a large age demographic. So something to consider, that maybe if you felt that Facebook was the only place you could reach a specific target, it may be worth, if you have the capacity, trying some of that same content out on Instagram and seeing how it performs. Instagram itself is a visual focused platform. So it was created as a place to share photos. So that still is an important part of it. And it's really connection and community based. I find it easier to grow and connect with the right people on Instagram versus Facebook, just in terms of like the ability to connect with accounts and engage and comment as your business. With Instagram, big focus on photos, reels, so those are those short form videos, and stories. And stories are Instagram's take on Snapchat. So it's content that disappears in 24 hours. And that's a really great way to build connection with your audience. We'll chat about like some more specifics about each type of content, but this is like just an overview to give you a sense of each platform. Similar to Facebook, like that 2 to 3 times a week is a really good like foundation for Instagram. And I would even probably change this to 2 in terms of like being consistent and respecting your capacity is the most important piece. With Instagram, as I mentioned, really great opportunity to use engagement to grow your community. So again, we're not just like posting and then logging out and not engaging. The nice thing about Instagram is we can go look at, okay, what other businesses are in Bruce County, and go engage with them and comment and follow them. And it makes it really easy for them to find out about your business and to follow you back. Hashtags also help us reach new people on Instagram, and so do location tags. So location tags show where you are located. So if I look at, I'm going to type in Bruce County in the Instagram search, and I'm going to look, I didn't do the location. I wonder if one of these is tagged. So I can see here, this post, the tag is at Lions Head Lookout. So that's like a geo tag of that location. So if I click on this location, I'm going to see every single post that's been tagged at Lions Head. If I'm a business located in Lions Head, maybe I'm going to go and look at this geographical tag, see what content has been posted there, and then engage with some of those people or those businesses to try to get them to come to my my business. So I can go in like and engage with these people, like either follow them or comment them, but specifically any businesses. Like if I saw, what is this? I assume an artist. I'm going to go and I'm going to follow Nadia and engage with her content. And that's like a connection I've made both in on social media, but also in real life, which can be helpful in terms of just building our network as entrepreneurs. Oh, it's a really good question from Aline. When users generate content, is there a way to curate the user generated content, and what is legal responsibilities do we have that the content others post on our site is accurate? So when it comes to sharing user generated content, so let's say I have an Airbnb in Bruce County and I want to show the cool things you can do in the winter, and my Airbnb is by Lion's Head Lookout as the example. I cannot take this person's post and use it on my social media platform because it's their content. In terms of like legal responsibility, we need to have approval from that person. So like I would have to say, and let's say Sylvia stayed at my Airbnb. I know that. So I'd be like, hi, Sylvia, love this photo of you and the family at the trail. Could I use this on our social media? She would reply, yes. Then you're good to repost it, but we can't just take something and put it on our own social. And I think often where that goes into a gray area is like graphics, or like maybe we found something on Pinterest or on Google that has no credit given. We have to do our best attempts. Find credits, like if I just type in hand lettering, like I'm going to try to look for something that's like maybe a graphic that maybe I'd want to post on my account. So this was actually posted by this account, so Hannah Collective. So I could ask Hannah, like, can I repost this? But if we found this on social media and it's from a random account, we know it wasn't theirs. We don't know where it came from. Try to find where it comes from. That kind of gets into like a legal gray area. And again, I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice, but for the most part, like there's no legal repercussions in that sense if it is like free content on the internet. Same thing when it comes to like memes. Like I get that question a lot too. So for example, I don't own this photo of Rihanna, but there is, from my understanding, again, I'm not a lawyer, it's not legal advice, but there is like fair use rules when it comes to pop culture. So that's a reason why I have like an office image, because I'm using it for, what's the word? Starts with P, but like I'm using it for, I'm not like taking it and using it as my own content. I'm making my own spin on it, but it's like putting my own spin on it. I can't think of the word off the top of my head. When it comes to, is there a way to curate user generated content? Nothing inherent in the platform. So it would be either if I had a hashtag. So let's say I told people to hashtag social cat media when they came to a workshop. And so if we use that Airbnb example, like maybe I'm going to have a hashtag, or if someone comes to your store, you have a hashtag you want them to use to showcase their purchases. You could go through and look at that hashtag. Those would be like the only ways, unless we get into like some like some like separate third-party platforms that do it, but those can be really expensive. And in terms of have the content others post on our site is accurate, I don't know how to answer that in terms of like, I can't see an issue. Like if someone's posted user generated content, it's kind of, it's their content, it's on them in terms of accuracy. If you were doing branded content, like you paid someone to make a post, then it would be on you to make sure that, okay, they're not having any false claims about what your product does or the benefits of your service. But overall, that's kind of like the legal side of social media, I guess. No, I should present. Chat briefly about LinkedIn. Very powerful if you are like a service-based business or you work with other businesses, so that B2B, business to business audience. And interesting with LinkedIn, so like as we saw a lot of people leaving Facebook or using Facebook less, a lot of them have gone to LinkedIn. And while before it was a very passive, like completely business focused platform, we're seeing a bit more of that storytelling and personal connection come into the platform. And you can see 60% of LinkedIn's users are 25 to 34 years old. So it is business focused, opportunity to share articles and your expertise, but we are seeing a lot more of like inspirational, like storytelling content. And the one example I saw that was like a viral post on LinkedIn was an example of, it was like a woman, I think she owned her own business, but she talked about like, I don't take meetings past 4:30. And she tells a story about how her kids go to bed at 7, and so that means they have to eat dinner at 5, and that's like a non-negotiable in her life, so she doesn't do meetings past 4. So both that's connection, like sharing a piece of her life, and also like that inspiration, like motivation to have those boundaries. But we're seeing that on LinkedIn, which before would have been more like a Facebook, Instagram content. So it is becoming more casual as a platform. If you are in the B2B industry, I would recommend getting a LinkedIn account, posting as yourself versus the business. A lot easier to create those connections on LinkedIn. It still is a more passive platform in terms of like content creation. If you can post once there, like a week, that's great. I do not at this point. It is on my list of things, but again, it's all about like respecting your capacity. I see opportunities for myself on LinkedIn, but I don't have the capacity right now, and that's okay. So it's not a priority for me. I wanted to include TikTok because I know I get a lot of questions about, does my business need to be on TikTok? And the answer is it depends. Do you like creating video, and is your audience there? TikTok definitely does skew young. So like, but the amount of like the 30 to 39 demographic is the same as basically the same as the 20 to 29 demographic. So it is kind of skewing across the board now and getting people from all age demographics. The real decision maker, like whether you're going to be on TikTok, is do you like creating video content? Because if the answer is no, I'm not going to say like you have to create video content. I have a TikTok account. I haven't posted any videos, and that's just a choice that I don't have, again, the capacity to do that. So TikTok issues, as recently mentioned in the news. So it's very nuanced conversation, but the long and short of it is TikTok is owned by a Chinese company, and I haven't seen anything Canadian focused, US focused. They're looking, there's been talks about banning TikTok in United States. I don't think they actually will, but there's like security questions. And it really comes down to, and it's something that I think more people need to consider across social media, not just TikTok, is that we share a lot of ourselves on social media, and we have to be concerned about our privacy and our security. So like, people are worried about like US military people filming videos of them at a camp or something, and then people can get a sense of like, hey, what does this place look like? So like I recommend like not showing photos of like your front door of your house or things like that that can affect your security or privacy overall. So not just on TikTok, but across social media. Like it's like best practices. Also goes back to why I don't share my kids' faces or likeness or names on social media. A, because they can't consent. They don't understand what mommy does for a living. And B, like our content could go anywhere in the world and we really have no control of it. That's a good point from Vicky. So like a federal government of Ontario and a lot, like I know some municipalities have banned TikTok from work devices. so that when it can't be on work devices in terms of like security and information. So that's the heavy part of it. But it is a platform that people enjoy using. Like the average user spends 95 minutes on the app per day, which is wild. So if you like creating video forms, or even if you're just like right now a TikTok user and you like enjoy watching the videos, I would encourage you just to try to make a video. It's not dancing focused or like things like that. Like it could be educational where you're sharing health tips about like some of those things we talked about earlier, those education, like 3, your favorite ingredients for smoothies. And then you're talking about why avocado, banana, and hemp seed are your must-haves for a smoothie as the example. With everything with social media, the first time we do it, we might be really bad at it, or we might think we're really bad at it, but the only way to get better at it is by doing it. So we do have to experiment and try new things and see where that goes for us, which I understand and respect is uncomfortable and can be really hard. The nice thing about TikTok and why so many people like it, its algorithm is vastly different from a Facebook and a Instagram. Facebook and Instagram, the good part about them is they really understand us, which I mean kind of goes into that whole security piece, is they know a lot about us. So they can say, okay, Kat has engaged with this account in the past, or these types of accounts in the past. So I think she will like this type of content. And that's when you go on like the explore page. And I'll just use Instagram as the example real quick. If I go to my Instagram, share. This like the magnifying glass at the bottom is like the explore page. And this is where I can see content from people I'm not necessarily following. And this is how Instagram, this is what Instagram knows about me. So it knows I talk a lot about social media. So I can see, okay, there's lots of stuff about running a business and social media. It also knows that I'm a mom. So it talks about being a toddler parent, which I am. Is it okay to say no to playing with your child? I've been Googling a lot about looking for bathing suits. So I get some bathing suit content because I'm looking for a new suit for summer. I also have some like ADHD content coming up. So it knows a lot about me. Excuse me. TikTok, on the other hand, its algorithm works a lot differently in terms of like the really random stuff can go viral. So a lot of people like that. The one thing that I don't like about TikTok is it's a very hungry platform. It wants a lot of content from you. So nothing wrong with trying once and like doing one post. The people who are really successful on TikTok are posting like multiple times a day, or like at least once a day. Not realistic for a lot of business owners, and unless we are like super adept at creating that content. So it's important to not compare ourselves. Like if we go and do one post, most likely not we're going to become a viral superstar, but that's okay. That's not necessarily our goal with our business on social media. Then there's a question of how will we post? So what type of content are we actually putting out into the world? First thing we'll talk about is photos. Sorry. When it comes to photos, this is still really, really important on social media. Yes, there's a lot of video content out there, but photos still make a big impact. We saw, and like in my case, there's photos of me that were some of my top performing content. When it comes to making posting on social easier for you, really important to build a content library. And what I mean is going through your phone, going on your computer, looking for like every photo you have of your business and putting them into one spot. This can be a Google Drive folder or Dropbox folder. an album on your phone, we want to make sure that it's as easy as possible for you to create content. So when you're sitting down to make a post, it's not then I have to go take a photo or I have to go make something. That we want it to be a quick process for you. So definitely go through your archives and see what content you already have. And then you can also get a sense of like, what content are you missing? So are you missing photos of you working? Are you missing photos of your employees? Of like your examples of your services, examples of your products. And then we want to fill in those gaps by either working with a photographer or taking those photos and videos ourselves. If you have the capacity to work with a photographer, I'd highly recommend it. Great way to support another local entrepreneur and get some really high quality images for your social media and for your website. If that's not a possibility for you right now, treat yourself as a photographer. So still schedule that time in your calendar, put on like get your workspace looking good. Get all those things ready, just like you were if you were hiring a photographer, and take those images. Put your phone on a tripod. Like your phone is definitely good enough for taking photos. I have called a ring light. So it holds my phone and has a light. So I use this like for filming videos or if I'm taking a photo. Usually I'm just using photos from my photographer that I work with once a year. And then I have lots of photos for my social. But I'm just gonna plug this into my computer, maybe, and turn it on. So like this is me without it. And then there's me with it. So even something like that, which is a fairly inexpensive Amazon purchase, can be really helpful for creating content. Whatever's going to make it easier for you to capture that content. Also important to think about that, like your social media feed is like your storefront. So even if you don't have a actual brick and mortar, think about your social media as like your virtual storefront and that experience you want people to have when they come to your page. So here's the example when I made of a pottery studio. These are all high quality images that really showcase the work. They also showcase the person making it and like the hands with it. It gives me way more of an emotional experience and like connection to it versus if it was like a blurry photo taken in my basement late at night. And I know often, like if we're a maker or even if we're a business owner and like our days are full, that sometimes social media is only a task we can get to sometimes at night. So that's why I encourage you to make sure you set aside that time to create some content, to capture some images during the day when you have good lighting, so that regardless of when you actually are sitting down to create content, you have stuff ready to go. Generally across social media, Square is the go-to. But on Instagram, what I recommend is using portraits shaped rectangles, which is 1080 by 1350 pixels. And actually, like if we went into Canva, and I'm not going to get too far into it, Canva does have an Instagram portrait as a default content option. So if I go into my Canva, which if Canva is new to any of you, it's a really great graphic creation software. I know we have a graphic designer on the call who probably cringed when I said that, but for the average small business owner, it is really helpful. We'll talk about graphics in a second, but the key thing is really like the overall brand experience. So the negative Canva is that there's so many templates. Like if I just go in here, there's 1,000 different options, and that can really make it easy to lose our brand on social media, where one day we're posting, something like this, but then the next day we're posting like this. It doesn't fit with our brand. We want to make sure that our brand comes through everything. But the nice thing about Canva is they have a default for the Instagram post portrait. And this is the longer rectangle, which takes up more space in someone's feed. So while they're scrolling on their phone, this takes up more phone space, which is an easy little hack update we can do to improve our content. Oh, a good question here. Do you think it's important that we have a logo or banner created? My answer is always gonna be yes, in terms of like that brand awareness and people being able to recognize your brand. So if they see you on social media and then maybe they see you at a market or they come across your website, we want that like mark to be somewhere that they can recognize across the board. So Canva is free. And most of the things that I do in Canva, I wouldn't need the pay. I have the paid one. There's some upgrades to it, which I like. One of them being that brand piece. So like I have it. So my brand, like my brand template, where is that? Brand hub is like a premium feature. So I have it here. I have my logo. I have my colors. That's a premium feature. But you could still get around, still make sure you're using the same colors, the same fonts with the free version. So if you've never used it before, it's like, I'd say totally worth signing up for the free version and just playing around with it. It's really handy. The next piece is graphics. So as I mentioned, graphics can be really effective for communicating our messages on social media. So we saw some examples of that with the meme content, like that. I use a bunch because it's very apropos to my business, but I have like this was created in Canva. So I'm taking that education piece and making it easy for people to stop scrolling. That's the thing we're always fighting with on social media, is getting people's attention, because our attention spans have shortened from social media, and there's so much content out there that we're competing with that we want to think about, okay, how can we quickly communicate our message? So one of the ways we can do that is with a graphic that very clearly communicates what I'm showing you right here, real mistakes you might be making. The other piece of that in terms of caption writing is thinking about that first line of your caption and getting people to want to read more. Let's see if I can find a good example. Here's another example of a graphic where I could have just used, communicate this message in the caption with the image, but then it's going to be really easy for someone to scroll by and not consume that content. Also, this is a good PSA for everyone here. If you've ever seen on social media, people use these like fancy fonts. They're not accessible, like screen readers can't read them properly, and they also don't help in terms of search results, so don't use them. But using a graphic here makes people stop scrolling, and they have that main message as like my first line in my caption. And this is true across social media. So regardless of what platform you're on, you really want that first sentence to be what pulls people in, that if they're scrolling through, this is going to make them want to read more and like, okay, what is this about? As I mentioned, Canva is really great for templates and brand colors. In terms of the person asking about like a logo, that brand presence is really important. So in addition to a logo, it's important to have like the same fonts you're going to use across social media, the same colors. That way, when someone's scrolling, they can quickly get a sense of like what that business is. So for me, you've probably guessed from this presentation, my brand colors include pink, and that's really what I lean into on social media. So while not all my graphics look the exact same, they all are using the same colors, and it's vastly different, but I'm using the same fonts, the same colors, so people can still see that it's like, it's from me when it goes out. So that at the, like I'd say the bare minimum, you want to make sure you're using the same colors, the same fonts, so that when people are scrolling, they can get like, oh, that's from the poultry farm that I follow. I know that that's their colors or fonts, and it's like a thing people think about without even realizing that they would recognize, okay, that's from this company. And as I meant, like I could talk about Canva for 2 hours as well. But if that's something that you want to talk about, like creating graphics for your business, that's something we can work on in one of those complimentary power hours. Other thing to consider is videos. And across social media, video does have a lot of value. It doesn't need to be something super produced. As I mentioned, like using your phone is going to be great. So across Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, that short form video does perform really well, and that is like vertical based. So having your phone filmed up and down, and you can repurpose that content across social media. The other thing you can do, like if you're not feeling super comfortable yet filming or like not sure what to film, you can also use Canva templates to make video content, whether it's for TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, using your brand colors and fonts. So in that example, I'll just pop back into Canva. They have templates for Reels. I'll just look at that. Instagram Reel. And so these are all these different types of video content you can create without necessarily having to show your face on camera, or even film stuff in some cases. So these are all real examples, real examples. So some can be like graphic based. Some might be like with a video in the background. It's actually just a photo and they've added like moving text over it. In terms of like inspiration, like here's one that could be, this is like more marketing, like marketing Spain. It's like a text message conversation that pops up, and that's something you could just make really quickly in Canva. I'll actually jump to that slide right now. I got a question in the chat about hashtags. So let me just jump here. So hashtags are really important across social media. They're most impactful on Instagram and TikTok. Facebook and LinkedIn use them, probably more impactful on LinkedIn versus Facebook. Facebook tried them. They don't really do anything. On Instagram, we can use up to 30. And each hashtag on every platform should be considered a search term, like a keyword about your business that people might be looking for. Social media overall is becoming a lot more like a search engine. So it's something to consider, that you want to, especially if you're locally based, that you work primarily with people in your local region, your number one hashtag is going to be ones about your area. So even if I search Bruce County, that's what I would encourage all of you to use in Bruce County. But I can also see what other ones people in the area are using, because we're going to want to like differentiate. So maybe there's Walkerton, Ontario, that I'm going to add because that's where I am. So a notice of absence of Twitter. So Twitter is a little bit of a conundrum. I mean, similarly to TikTok, but Twitter actually is classified as a news network versus a social media platform. And I don't really talk about it a lot in social media because it's not relevant to the average small business. There's a few key industries, so like sports, education, and like news that's really valuable for, but for the average small business, no. And like with Elon Musk purchasing it, a lot of people have been leaving Twitter, so it's still like to be determined what happens with it. But here's a good example of some hashtags to incorporate Bruce County, Georgian Bay, Lake Huron. So all these, and even then I could look at each of these hashtags, Bruce Peninsula, and see what's included in there, and curate my list. When it comes to hashtags, I don't recommend you write them out every time, but like creating a Google document or a note on your phone where you keep the ones that are relevant to your business. In terms of hashtags, should you always include your business? Doesn't hurt. There's no downfall to including Bruce County. Like in this example, the account is Bruce County Public Library. They've used hashtag Bruce County Public Library. There's no downfall to doing it, especially if like the benefit of it is if you want people to use it when they're, let's say Bruce County Public Library is like, hey, share your photos of the books you got from the library using hashtag Bruce County Public Library. And then they can go through and they could see the posts that people have posted. And then like, oh, hey, can we share this photo of you and your books on our social media? Okay, where were we? The other thing to consider across platforms is stories. So as I mentioned earlier, stories are like the Snapchat version that a lot of platforms have taken on. So it's like behind the scenes content. If you're already active on Facebook and Instagram, that would be like a next step for you, is looking at experimenting with stories. So this is behind the scenes of like your day-to-day life, what you're doing in your business, what's going on the day-to-day. And then when will you post? The question I get asked a lot is like, is there an ideal time to post? The answer is no. It's going to depend on your business and your audience. Although one thing to consider is how your audiences use social media. Overall, I generally recommend posting in the morning versus the night, because it gives more time in the day for people to see your content when they log into social media. But everything's an experimentation with social media, which is the great thing, but also the hard part. So try posting for a week at 8 a.m., see how that content performs, post 1 week at 6 p.m. and like compare it between the two and see what performs best. It also, again, comes into like what's realistic for your life. I recommend scheduling content in advance, but if you're not there yet, which is totally okay, like, do you have time in the morning to make social media content? If the question is no, it's better to do the post at noon than it is to not post at all. So that's just a few things to consider. And I know it's annoying not to get like the one default answer, but overall, I recommend the morning. I also recommend planning ahead. So this does not mean you have to create all your content in advance, but we looked at April a lot in this workshop, and that is, what are we, 9 days away from April. This week is a really good time to look at that April calendar coming up, look at that National Today page, see what things are going on, thinking about what's going on in your audience, what's going on in their lives, what's going on in your business life. So like maybe you need to do a post about your Easter hours, or you want to do a family, like a connection post about your Easter dinner that you've been having for 10 years and you haven't been able to do it for a few years and you're excited it's going to be back. So thinking about your life, your business, your audience's lives, and what content you can go in there, whether it's like on a digital calendar or like you just print off an April calendar, just writing in some like dot notes, going back to your those ways to provide value and seeing which ones align for your business. But let's say one of them is education. You're like, okay, what are 2 ways I can educate my audience this month in April? Just jot them down. And then that's going to make it so much easier when it comes to creating the content. Remembering to focus on that value, but also don't forget to sell. So like making sure you have the posts that like directly talk about what you offer and how people can work with you. Good question from Lindsay about, I have an Instagram and Facebook. Is it okay to post an Instagram post automatically to Facebook? I'm going to say yes. So the caveat of this is that it might like the content created for Instagram might not be formatted perfectly to Facebook, but if our focus is on Instagram, then I think it's okay to then just get the content out on Facebook. I use the same content in both places. I do schedule it for Facebook separately. So I remove the hashtags, maybe format it a little bit differently, but as like a baseline, I think it's better to do that than to not post on your Facebook. The other thing you can consider doing is batching your content. And this can be as simple as just sitting down and writing your 2 posts for the week instead of doing them one by one. It's really helpful for our brain to get into the mindset. And like once we do a task, it becomes easier to do it again. So especially writing captions, because I think this is like one of the overall struggles or least favorite things about social media for business owners is writing captions. It's a lot easier that after you use one caption, when you write one caption, then you do another one. Thinking about like making things casual in a way that works for your business, but thinking about like, how would you talk to a colleague about this topic or a client or a friend? just so it seems natural and not super, I don't know, like we've all seen posts that are like very cold to read, like it doesn't speak to us. We want to think about that one person that's reading it. Depending on your business, you can use emojis, use line breaks, so keep really small paragraphs. And we talked about calls to action at the beginning. So whether it's a call to action for people to work with you, or a call to action to engage, those are things we want to consider. If you are batching, you can create multiple graphics at once, grab all your photos at once, and you can schedule content, which is another great question from Lindsay. So there are a vast number of ways to schedule social media content. I honestly, I'll usually recommend the options that are inherent to the platforms. So Facebook's Meta Business Suite lets you schedule for Instagram and Facebook. And they just changed it. So it used to be called Creator Studio, and now it's just right into Meta Business Suite. So for example, let me just grab my business. I can create a post. I go into my planner, I can see what's coming up. There's gonna be nothing because I don't use this personally for my business, but for clients, this is what we use. But I can create a post. I can choose what place it goes out to. I could have it go into both places, but let's just say I'm gonna make a Facebook post. So just like I would if I was posting in the moment, I would write my text. And what I mean by using line breaks is having those spaces between to make it easier for people to read. I can either add a link. If I do socialcatmedia.com, which I'll do www, and it should bring up the preview of that website that I put in. So if it's an article or whatever, it's gonna bring that preview up. Or I could add a photo. So if I didn't want to use that link, I could add a photo that I have on my computer, and then I'm just going to choose when I want to go out. So we talked about like posting in the morning. Let's say I want to post at 6 a.m., but I also don't want to be up at 6 a.m. posting. I can choose tomorrow at 6 a.m. this post is going to go live, and then I don't have to do anything about it. Same thing with Instagram. I could do it from here, or you can do it right in the Instagram app, which is a new feature. And if anyone has questions about that, I can show you the how-to kind of as we wrap up at the end. But those are my general go-tos. Plan, Later, Buffer are great options too that are like third party. All have free versions, but for the most part are paid products. Whereas like the Facebook stuff is free and already integrated into your account. So that's always my go-to. I said no right time. Routine can be helpful for your brain or your audience. So like if it's in your, like if you want to say, okay, I post Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m., go with it. It's gonna be way more effective to show up consistently, to do it, to be there versus trying to like find the right time, get frustrated and not post. So whatever is gonna work for you, but some people find that routine really, really helpful. With our last few minutes, ask any questions in the chat. We'll see if we can get to them. I have a few like kind of wrap up things I wanted to chat about. And then I'll hang out for a few minutes after for any other questions. So some other things to consider is like your profile setup. So whether it's your Instagram profile, your Facebook page, your LinkedIn account, is what your photo is going to be. If you're a solopreneur, especially if you're a business, so I know we have a nutritionist here and a graphic designer, make your photo you. That way people can connect with you and they can understand who you are. And like when they see your post, they can see your face and like imagine you talking. For a larger organization, your logo for sure. And we just want to make sure it's formatted properly for the circle format so that it looks good. It's the same across platforms so that we have that brand recognition in all those different places. When we're thinking about like our bios or in our about sections on our profiles, we want to make sure we tell what we do. So what our services or what our product is, but also what that benefit is to our audience. So we're always flipping things back to think about our audience. The example I shared at the beginning was about buying my kids these handmade, sun hats on the weekend. So that business's bio shouldn't be just like they make hats, but the benefit of them, that they're easy to care for, hand-me-down quality, like they're going to last for multiple kids, and the widest brim on the market, let's just say, is that example. So not only do I just find out what she does, but that benefit of this is why I should purchase from this person, or the nutritionist, like what is the end benefit I get from working with you? And we want people to be able to get that very quickly from when they see our platforms and our profiles. We chatted about hashtags. Another really important part, and we did talk about this a little bit earlier, is engagement. So social media is not a one-way street. We want to make sure that we spend time meaningfully engaging with the right people. And this is relevant across platforms, but thinking about both who your audience is and who do they follow. So if I'm a Bruce County business, I'm going to think about, okay, does my audience go to this coffee shop, or do they go to this specialty store? So let's say my audience is moms and there's a store that's targeted, that's baby stuff. I'm going to make sure that I'm following that account, that I'm commenting on their posts, like not just like, you know, spam comments, but like meaningful posts, like, oh, I really love your Easter display that you set up. That is a really great way to both get your business name and you seen by others. And it also helps the social media platforms, like we talked about the algorithms, decide, okay, who is this person connected to, and suggest your account to the right people. So this is something just to get in the habit of, even if it's just like once a week, putting a timer for 10 minutes on your phone and going and doing this meaningful engagement. It's really powerful because overall people are using social media like more and more passively, or like we're not engaging as much. So when we can actively engage, it's going to have really big benefits for our business and really builds that connection with our audience. And in terms of growing, we're focusing on that content. So that's why we worked so much on the strategy at the beginning, because we want to know why we're posting it and what value people are getting out of it. We're going to use those hashtags. We're going to experiment with our content, see what's working, user insights. And the big key that is often overlooked is that engagement piece, is actively, it's kind of like at a networking event. You'd go and you'd shake someone's hand and talk to them. That's what we want to do on social media. And my ideal workflow for you going forward from today. So you're going to experiment. You're going to try some new forms of content. Maybe you're going to do your first graphic, or like film your first video, or do an educational post for the first time. You're going to experiment with some content. You're going to engage with people. You're going to be an active member of your social media community. You're going to analyze to see, okay, what was working from that content? And most importantly, you're going to have fun. You're going to see what you enjoy doing, what feels good to create, what brings you joy as a creator, and then lean into that. There's no one right way to do social media. There's millions of different right ways depending on what feels good to you. So that's like my big goal for you going forward, is to make it enjoyable for you. Okay, remember your why. As I mentioned at the beginning, and Amanda, and I'll go through these questions, but I know people probably have to pop off for meetings and things like that. So we'll do the final wrap off, and then I'll stay around and answer some of these questions. But we will have the recording. So if you do need to leave, and I'm gonna share some more answers in a second. Amanda, do you want to pop on and do the, oh, there you go.
Yep. Yep, just making sure no other questions came through. Thank you so much, Kat. I think I speak for everyone when I say that was fantastic. That made social media, hopefully for everybody, a lot less scary, a lot more fun, and just getting some good tools and tips on how we can use it better and easier for our small businesses. So yes, just as Kat said, I'm going to send out the recording in a follow-up email, as well as the link to book your Power Hour with Kat, and that's courtesy of Bruce County. We have several spots available for that. There is, we have a limit on them, but if we reach that max, we're open to increasing it, so no worries about that. Yes, and we may have some other, I'm going to talk to you, Kat, probably about some other little takeaways we might be able to send in the recap email. But thank you to everyone for coming, and feel welcome to reach out to me with any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. So I'll go through the chat now and answer some questions, but if you need to pop off, thank you for coming today. Great to see so many faces in the video, and so many great questions, which is awesome. A question from Janet about, do you find using the full 30 hashtags on Instagram is better, or does a few work better? It's a very controversial topic on Instagram. And I actually did a post, I did a test, like I was using 30 and I tried using 5 because so many people were saying it. And my ones with 30 hashtags performed wildly better. And if we think about just like the logistics of how it works, each tag is an opportunity to get found by new people. So I encourage using the full 30 hashtags when relevant. We don't want to stuff hashtags in just to try to get to 30 because they're not going to be relevant to our business or help us get to the right people. Especially if we're thinking about hashtags that are like overly saturated, like hashtag love would have probably billions of uses, and it's not going to help our content get seen. So we want to make sure that they're targeted, but yeah, use as many as relevant for your posts. Let's see what other hands. How often should you change photos in those formats? Joan, if you want to expand further about that question, I'm just not sure 100%. It might be what I was talking about at that moment. If someone starts following us on Instagram, should I start following them back? It depends if you want to be connected with them. So if some people might start following you because they want to learn from you, they like your work. If it's someone that you want to follow and you're interested in what they post, follow them back, but don't feel like you need to. It's like, you're not breaking any rules or I'm trying to think of the word, but like, it's okay to not follow people back. You want to make sure that you're following and you're saving your following space. I know it's like an endless amount of space, but for the people that you want to see show up in your feed and that you're going to enjoy seeing content from. So you don't have to, but if it's someone that you would maybe want to work with, or like you like their content, for sure, follow them back. And yeah, I always I'm very passionate about like curating our social media, so it makes us feel good. And like, it's really important to determine like who you follow, so that when you open up your social media, it's not like, oh, who is this person? I don't really care about their content. You want to make something that makes you feel good when you open up social media. Thanks for all the nice comments, everyone. Super excited to work with you all in Power Hours. It's like for insights on Instagram, you don't need to have a certain number of followers, but you need to have a business account. So that's maybe it's a link we can include in like a follow-up email. But you'll need to have a business account on Instagram, which is free. And it's just a change of like your account setup. And that lets you have a few extra tools on Instagram. So insights being the most important thing. But also if you're going to sell products down the road, you can use like Instagram and Facebook shopping, where you have you can take a product in specific posts, but definitely want to make sure that you have a Instagram business account. Oh, so in terms of people changing their profile photo and the header. So in your account or profile setup, they don't have to be stagnant forever. You can definitely experiment them, especially if you think about your Facebook page and that header photo. That's something you can update often. So like when, let's say you have a spring launch of products, you can change that header photo so it's relevant to your specific content going out now. Or maybe you got some new brand photos, you can update that. Definitely, for sure. With the profile photo, I just recommended keeping it the same across platforms. So if you update it one place, update it across the board. Totally okay to update them. It's great to keep get fresh content up there. Okay, I'm gonna stop that share. I'll stop